sort of realized that, to be a man, you have to be able to open about your emotions with everyone. You have to be able to, learn what is truly important in life and display that to the people that you love around you. And being able to open up is, it doesn't make you any less of a man. It only makes you human.
Welcome to Tad Voices. I'm Nick.
And I'm Lawson. And we're friends and former teammates who are here to talk about mental health.
We are by no means experts in this field, nor is this a substitute for professional help, but we can promise open and vulnerable conversations that highlight the strength of some amazing people who have decided to share their story with us.
Talk, share, help. And thanks for listening. Today, we couldn't be happier to be joined by Burke White. Burke is a graduate of the Smith School of Business at Queen's University, where he played varsity lacrosse and was involved in several really awesome initiatives, one of these being the Cure Cancer Classic, an annual hockey tournament that has raised a ton for cancer research. More recently, he co-founded Tether, a resource that encourages men to have honest conversations about life, and we are so excited to learn more about this project today. Burke, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you having me on and being able to talk about, Tether and also talk about depression today. So thanks again.
Burke, it's great to have you on. What have you, just quickly, what have you been up to? What's your COVID life been like?
That's a good question. It's kind of progressed a little bit since the weather got warmer. I was hiding up north, just north of Toronto, actually, for about 6 weeks when all this kind of kicked off to get out of the city. But since I've been back, just staying at my place, working, and then occasionally getting up for a bike ride or to the park, but definitely very different from the social or just getting out sense than normal. But it's been an adjustment, but I don't mind the working from home aspect, and just kind of like everything's self-contained within your home. So I don't mind it. How about you guys? How have things been on your side?
Yeah, it's been good. Like I said, it's a little bit of an adjustment. It kind of everything came down right before I graduated. So it was a little bit of an interesting senior spring, but it's honestly been nice to be back home.
So Burke, we'd like to sort of jump right in a little bit and, give you the floor to talk to us a little bit about Tether. But I guess our initial question would be, what was the motivation behind Tether?
Yeah, so the motivation behind Tether was based around personal experience that I've had and that my co-founder, Matt Zerker, have had. So if we kind of go back in my life, I graduated from Smith School of Business in 2017, and I made a transition from university into, the real working world. I was working in a finance role at a bank here in Toronto, and I realized that there was a lot of aspects that were very unfulfilling with what I was doing. So I was very unhappy, unmotivated, and depressed when I was in that role. So based on that, I decided to make an active choice to, get out of that environment and made a transition into the technology world. At that point, it was a small startup, and unfortunately, the company shut down that I had joined, and I wasn't working there for a few months, and that kind of really put a strain on my mental health and kind of really deteriorated my self-worth. So, through that journey, I was at the lowest part of my life when I was unemployed there. And I realized I had a lot more time to kind of look introspectively into myself and really dig into the deep issues that I was too busy to before to even explore. So if you think about kind of, life growing up, right? I went to school, played a lot of sports growing up, was very busy all the time, distracted. Then going into university, you're kind of like always distracted by like social aspects going on or sports I was playing or other things. So you don't really have time to like dig into these deep-seated issues that you may have. And it was only when I had that time to really figure myself out and kind of go through this like depressive phase that I was in, and that, I've struggled with ongoing, that I was able to really, recognize the issues that I have and recognize what it took for me to actually open up and kind of learn about myself. And so through that, connecting with other men in my life and kind of asking for advice and seeing where I was going in my journey was extremely helpful to me. So back in October of 2019, I met my co-founder, Matt Zerker, at a product course, which we were taking. And he has had a lot of troubles in his life. A close friend of his passing away very suddenly. that kind of catapulted him into this own journey of his own. And so we connected very closely on those topics ourselves. And Matt actually came into the product course with an idea of wanting to do something with mental health and specifically for men. So I have a product technology background experience after I made that transition, and I knew that there's something that I needed to do and that I wanted to do, and that would actually give me, purpose in the work that I do. So we connected, and we knew that connecting men one-on-one and in group settings for meaningful conversations was what needed to happen. After that, there was a lot more, market testing, validation, and understanding the guys we're talking to through user interviews. But that was where the initial spark actually came from, was, our own personal experiences and the experiences we'd seen in our friends around us.
It's awesome to see someone who is able to kind of take those. You touched on it a little bit earlier about, finding yourself in a role that you didn't necessarily find fulfilling. And I just kind of want to maybe explore that a little bit more detail. So now that you're at Tether, has that in a way helped you cope with some of those previous struggles that you had, and are you finding this new project is, you're really finding that, that self-worth, I guess?
It's a definitely different experience, first of all, when you're, starting a company. It's something that you're extremely passionate about. So that obviously has helped a tremendous amount with the passion I have for my work and, my own well-being. But additionally, it has given that kind of retrospective view on why I wasn't happy in the roles previously. And I think it had a lot to do with my own emotional maturity, going into a role that was very mature. And also just understanding that, large corporate political organizations where, the work that you do day to day doesn't seem like it's moving the dial as much as you would like it to, had a major impact. As well, just recognizing that I think there's a lot of people that actually struggle with this. Most of the times when you see in life that people have problems with their mental health or struggles, it's in major transition periods in their life, right? Either somebody goes from university, their first job, or somebody gets divorced, or somebody has their first child. There's a lot of difficulties that come with major transitions in your life. And so for me, I kind of realized that the process of handling that transition is something that I had to learn for the future, and kind of preparing yourself when you're going into that, because I was kind of going in blind in that exact moment. So now that I'm working with Tether, it's been an extremely fulfilling experience, and I'm doing work that, legitimately makes me happy, and makes me happy because I know that it's positively impacting the lives of many people who are on our platform and other people that those men's lives touch as well.
Burke, and I'm very happy for you. I found myself in a similar role a couple of years back that just wasn't quite as fulfilling as that I would hope. And, I'd like to sort of get into the male aspect of this now and ask, in your experience building Tether, why is it so difficult for men to not talk about these types of things and just sort of push through and say, I'll find a way through this, but I'm going to keep everything inside type of deal, and I'll sort of let it eat at me, but on the outside, I'm going to do the best job I possibly can?
Yeah, I think there's three important statistics to outline first to frame this. So the first one is that 77% of men suffer from some form of anxiety, severe stress, or depression. Only 40% of men said they would take thoughts of suicide. Not only, it's a lot, but 40% of men said they would take thoughts of suicide or self-harm to compel them to seek for any support or professional help. It's a pretty shocking statistic. And then as a product of this, 75% of all suicides are men. So when you actually dig into why that is, and why 40% of men say would take thoughts of suicide or self-harm to compel them to seek professional help, it's because men have been socialized to believe that it's not manly to have emotions or to struggle, right? I know the society is starting to evolve and allow for more emotional openness for men, but it's still very much stigmatized, right? There's a study, and 93% of men do not agree with the way that masculinity is depicted in the media. So when you look at that statistic, it's pretty shocking, right? Men are being trained from, when they're very little, don't cry, don't have emotions, don't open up, don't be vulnerable, right? Don't show any weakness whatsoever. And that has downstream effects on the mental health of men from when they're children all the way until they're, of old age. So it's because of these like outdated notions of what it means to be a man or what masculinity is in general, that kind of holds men back from opening up. And when you tend to bottle all these emotions inside and not release them and not talk through them and find solutions to problems, there's not always a solution, right? A lot of the time it's just being able to put it out there in the world and getting that off of your chest. If you're not able to do that, then these problems sit and dwell in you and really start to deteriorate the state of your own mental health, and therefore impact your actions on others and how you treat others. So it has a real downstream impact on everyone that their lives touch. So with Tether, what we're trying to do is provide a peer-to-peer support community that's a safe, barrier-free space where any man can speak openly, receive support, and connect with other men. And what we're hoping is that eventually these will create better men for themselves, better men for everyone that their lives touch, and then better men for all of society.
That's excellent. And I think, you touched on it. The statistics are alarming, to say the least. And, my follow-up question for you would be, as an athlete, as somebody who's, had experiences of mental challenges, and now to where you are now, I guess, what did toughness mean to you prior to college, and what does it mean to you now?
It's a great question. Yeah, I think I definitely could fit into that bucket of the typical like hyper masculine depicted in the media before I was going into college, right? I played, very high level hockey and lacrosse my entire life growing up. So it was in those cultures where it was to be good in these sports and to be very manly and very, not emotional, right? Or else you get, torn to shreds by everyone on the team. So I think before it was to be stoic and to, always be like the strongest or loudest guy in the room, and not really like displaying those emotions, like as I previously stated as well. But, through some of the struggles that I have gone through in my life, and experiences talking to other men and what they've been through as well, I sort of realized that, to be a man, you have to be able to open about your emotions with everyone. You have to be able to, learn what is truly important in life and display that to the people that you love around you. And being able to open up is, it doesn't make you any less of a man. It only makes you human. So I think that's been the change in my philosophy. And, even coming on this podcast, I'm very happy to talk about, everything that I have going on in my life. Because, being an open book, it's just going to, it positively impacts your own mental health. And also just, reap rewards for yourself in the future.
Yeah. And that's something that we've kind of talked about and covered a little bit on this podcast before. Really just like the importance, and I mean, specifically for men too, I think this is true, but just being able to be vulnerable.
No, and I think it's important to recognize that, men traditionally have been like, I don't need therapy. I don't need any support from a mental health standpoint. And I think, even for us, right, we're a peer-to-peer support community, and it's about gaining advice and just having somebody listening who's a peer. But I think it was, so 77% of men, the statistics, so 77% of men suffer with anxiety, stress, or depression, but only 30% of the mental health resources in Canada are used by men. And so if you actually look at that, it means that men aren't willing to go to therapy. So what we're trying to do is to provide peer-to-peer connection and kind of be the lowest barrier to entry for men to, seek advice and seek support. And so I think it's important with the peer-to-peer aspect. I want to first note that, we're in no way trying to replace traditional therapy. Like, I think it's absolutely incredible what you get of traditional therapy. And I think it's just a different need that is fulfilled when you're speaking to a peer and they're being honest, because there's no other motivation for them to be there other than wanting to be there and wanting to listen to you and wanting to support you. So I think it's a very fulfilling experience, and just, being in a space where men can actually open up with each other on a very personal level, can have amazing benefits.
Do you think that somehow Tether can find its way into a locker room where your peer-to-peer support on Tether is more, what's the word that I'm looking for? It pushes that locker room culture of that hyper masculinity, that like somebody that's going through something, maybe they're not quite ready to open up about it, but they don't keep it inside. And somebody looks at them and is like, what's going on with, Nick? He seems off. And then all of a sudden sort of the game goes on where it's like, then you're guessing. Right. And so do you see that Tether, making its way into, locker rooms across the country and sort of globally?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, our vision is to make this a worldwide mental health peer support platform for men. And I think, it's a great example, right? Like in these hyper masculine environments. Like I did attend like an all boys school as well when I was growing up, right? Extremely hyper masculine, played hockey. I think in those locker room environments, it could be an amazing space. It's not something that we've planned for at this moment, but I think, it's a great point. I think being able to enable open conversations in environments like that is so important. So I think, the great thing with Tether is that it's a safe space for men to speak. So even if you can't have that conversation in person, because it's very difficult for the first time to have that conversation. Like I remember the first times that I was trying to have conversations about mental health and depression with my friends, like it's a very hard thing to just kind of lead into, right? But if it's in a more safe and like a sanctioned space where it's like, this is okay to have these conversations here, I think that's perfect for team environments and even locker rooms as well. Because your point is very true, right? It's like a lot of times it's kind of like guessing, right? It's like, if something's off, I'm not really sure what it is. It could be a variety of different things and you start to guess. But I think if we provide Tether in a safe space like that, it could be very useful in that environment as well.
Definitely going to be keeping a close eye on it. Where do you see the platform heading over the next few years, or what are kind of some of your projects that you are currently working on?
Yeah, so with product management and product development in general, it's funny. So when we started Tether, it was completely different from what it is now, right? Like it's forever evolving and changing based off of market research, user testing, user interviews, and different studies that we do like that. We're actually partnered with the University of British Columbia's Mental Health Research Department, 2 doctors there, and an organization called Heads Up Guys, which is a nonprofit that provides men with mental health tools. So through speaking with them, we know that we want to make this a validated platform to help men end the isolation issue, which is currently going on. But additionally, like in the future, like we do envision the big lofty goal for Tether is to be, the home for men's mental health. And, I think in the future, there's definitely like in-person events that you can schedule through our platform in our future. And, potentially even connecting you with, different services and resources in the platform as well. I'm not going to comment too much on the specifics because I think as of, 6 months ago, what Tether was going to be is like, I'm not kidding. Like it's a completely different platform than what we envisioned it being just based off of research that we've done. So, we have an idea of what our future platform is going to be, but it's probably going to change, to be honest with you. But at the end, the goal is to provide, resources, connections, and services to men that are going to positively benefit their mental health and well-being, and hopefully improve the lives of everyone.
That's awesome to hear, Burke. And how long has Tether actually been around for?
Since so we've been working on it since October of 2019. But we just launched a month ago, actually. So the application's been live on the Apple Store for 1 month. So we've seen some incredible men sharing very bravely their stories on the platform, connecting with other men. And, it's honestly really amazing to see men open up and just be honest on a platform like this, because it's, there's some like truly, truly incredible stories and, struggles that men have gone through and incredible support that you see as well. I think a really cool thing too about Tether is that, this is a platform for men. And I want to clarify as well that this is for anyone who identifies as a man. So, wherever you are on your journey, like we are here for you. But additionally, like there's been overwhelming support from the female community as well, because I think, women see the benefit and they see in their own lives, like how men are not able to open up, be honest with themselves and be honest with everyone in their lives about what they're struggling with. The support there has been overwhelming, because genuinely what we want to do is make men happier, make men, the best they can possibly be, so they can positively impact everyone that their lives touch, including, the women in their lives as well. So, there's a lot in the future for Tether, but I think like at the end of the day, we're sticking to, our core fundamentals of just truly trying to improve the lives of the men on our platform, and everything else should fall in line.
Yeah, and I just want to plug it as well. I downloaded it the other day when we heard that we were going to have you on. And I mean, I think the platform itself is extremely user-friendly, easy to access. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I was just going down and reading some stuff on there, and, not only the stories or experiences shared, but the comments, I think those are things Lawson and I touch on all the time. Like, you don't really know how much like a text message really matters when somebody's going through something, or a phone call, just asking, hey, how's it going? And to be able to share something, that personal and that vulnerable, and have those comments come in, I mean, that's a good feeling for anybody, but especially somebody who's going through something.
That's the thing too, right? It's so, like, to actually make that first post and be open and vulnerable for the first time, it's such a difficult thing for men to do, right? Like, because we've been socialized to almost like not be vulnerable, but you'll find that when you actually do open up, like men have on our platform, and even just in person in real life, that like the support you'll get is not only overwhelming, but like even just the smallest little comment or like piece of advice or just support that somebody's from, like, can actually mean the world to you and give you and completely change your perspective on, what you're going through, but also, what others in your life are going through too. So it's a great point. Just even the tiniest piece of outreach can mean so much to somebody.
Thank you so much for not only coming on, but really for identifying this real need and really effectively creating a safe space for men to connect. And as I reflect on Tether a little bit, what really stands out to me is that it's really a space that it's not intimidating. And I think that's so important. I mean, you mentioned obviously the benefits of therapy, but sometimes there are steps before that, which I think are extremely important. So I think that's another way that having that initial space, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Of course, thank you for having me on as well. Like, this has been amazing. I love talking to you guys. So easy to talk to. You guys are great hosts. But as well, like, I love what Talk About Depression is doing as well. Like a tool to really help, men and women in their lives find the support that they need, which I think is so important, because a lot of the time, like, okay, I'm depressed, I'm not feeling great, but how do I get the support that I need, right? And that's something that's so missing, because everything's instant in the world right now, right? But try and find a therapist. Like, try and find a therapist like right away. It's next to impossible, right? So more accessibility to services and therapists and any other mental health resources out there is like truly incredible, and I love what you guys are doing there as well.
And just before we let you go, I want to ask you one last question. What does mental well-being look like to you?
What does mental well-being? I think balance. The word is balance, right? I found when I've been at the lowest points in my life, I was too focused on one aspect and didn't have an open mind, right? So I think truly balancing and like having time for everything in your life is so important. But as well, in order to get to that place, learning, like, I always put such a precedence on just like being open to learn. And that always, whenever I learn new things, it legitimately makes me, whenever I'm reading or, finding out new things about different areas in different people's lives or anything in life, really, I find that my mental well-being tends to improve. So, learning and balance is definitely what it means to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Burke, so much. And, hopefully we can have you on in, maybe 6 months from now and see where Tether is and where you guys are at. And
I'd love that. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Continue to do great things. I think you're doing an excellent job. And obviously, I think all of us and all of our listeners will download Tether, and, feel free to share your story, because there's going to be an incredible support from the Tether community. So thanks again.
Thanks a lot, guys. Had a great convo. Thanks.